surface. I don't know that we'll see a pass here as they go. A deep dive on the brakes. Here comes the 680 to the inside.
By 7 on the second. I can't believe what we just saw.
With real-world racing making a resurgence here as we enter the month of July in 2020 on the tail end of a global pandemic, hopefully, the Washington, D.C. region SCCA iRacing League heads into their final round of the season, which was originally not scheduled to be the case, but it will be our final round of the 2020 summer season. Welcome to SimTV in the D.C. region SCCA iRacing League for Suzuka Circuit. 3.5 kilometer, 17-turn racetrack in Suzuka, Japan, where we'll contend one final time in the 2020 summer season. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined tonight by Finney and Nakuna as we tackle this 17-turn behemoth of a racetrack. It twists, it turns, it overlaps itself in one area, one of only two FIA Grade 1 circuits to do so. The other is a track located in Italy, a Ferrari test track. But tonight, we've got just about 13 drivers lined up to go racing for 60 minutes, an endurance race again, as we did a few weeks ago at Silverstone, Finian, tackling Suzuka this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also can't forget the round before, after that too, Road America, that also put on some pretty good racing. From Ken O'Seal's perspective, I don't think it was that good. He ended up being in the McLaren, and that was by choice, but he didn't think that he would be off the pace as much as he was. Really struggled there, but looking to be back on form back in his BMW Z4, currently second on the timesheets.
Qualifying underway right now as we head down to the racetrack here, and we've got just under 3 minutes remaining on the clock as we head down to catch Thomas Layton in the number 8 car running the Ferrari this week, and Layton's been consistently one of the best drivers out there on the racetrack, fitting, and he's looking pretty solid right now, a 10th and a half up on Ken O'Seal as they conclude qualifying here shortly.
And disclaimer, that's the driving we're talking about. It looks good. That paint scheme is something else.
It's something, all right. Misspelled Ferrari. There's the Nyan cat on the nose, and whole. Is that a Ford Mustang decal? Oh my goodness.
He's even got a bunch of 4X symbols on the back contact.
Well, that's certainly a paint scheme. There's all sorts of characters in this field. Ones with the paint on the race car, some with the paint on their helmet, but of course you can see Suzuka Circuit, 17 turns. We're going to go over that track here in just a minute, Finian, but another interesting thing I already mentioned, one of only two FIA Grade 1 tracks to cross over itself with a bridge on the backside of the circuit as the drivers approach 130R, that very high-speed left-hand turn. Let's head down to the track map here, Finian. I do want to take a look at this track because it is not necessarily a simple one by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it is not. It's a very, very technical circuit, and it starts pretty much right off the bat heading down into turn 1. You can almost head out through there flat out. You're going to have to give it a little bit of a lift, though, in these GT3 cars, and then heading down to brake really hard into turn 2, then back out of the corner and through the S's, and boy, are there a lot of them switching back from right to left to right to left to right again, and then back to left as over through Dunlop curve, and then down into Degner.
That Degner curve is a very quick right-hand jump over a curve, and then into turn number 9, which will set you up for the hairpin on the far side of the circuit, and then a run through the arbor, what do they call those things? They have Arbor Day, that's for trees, isn't it? As they head to the backside of the track, into 130R. You see they cross over the circuit and into Casio Triangle, which is the final sector. The last couple turns on this racetrack before returning to the front straightaway. That is a lap here at Suzuka. With 45 seconds left in qualifying, it looks as though Thomas Layton will be the best driver on the racetrack, but Ken O'Seal sits in second in his BMW Z4 in the number 23.
Yeah, looking to see if he can try to topple Thomas Layton's time. He is on a quick lap, if I'm not mistaken, as he heads back onto the front straightaway here. This is going to be his only time to try to jump ahead of Layton, and across the line he goes. He does not improve his time.
That time through a 2:01.766. That is a little bit over a second off of the best time that he'd run this session at 1:58.978. We'll have a couple of seconds left to complete qualifying laps. We had 13 drivers registered. It looks like we've got 12 at the moment, with John Willemin, last driver on the scoring pylon right now, as qualifying completes. Scott Merker on the number 77. A lot of Z4s, a lot of Ferraris out here. One of them, Colin Daner in the number 24, got one of those Pretty funny looking helmets on that car. We'll check that out during the pace lap here. Robert Porter's back this week. Francois Brou is in a Mercedes. He's not lonely this week. Andrew Chow's number 29 is also one of the Mercedes AMG GT3s.
Yep, and he comes rocketing onto the front straightaway. I believe this is his first start in this series. I don't remember seeing him for earlier rounds, but he will come across the line.
No time for him.
No,
or at least no, that time it was not a lap. It was a 2:02.343, his best of the evening so far. Murphy Nichols is back this week in the number 5 car with very slick looking livery on this car, the gray, red, and yellow checkered paint scheme on it as he rounds far side of the course and heads back up. Dave Fitzgerald is here as well, but he has not laid down a time in qualifying.
Yeah, he was saying that he just was not feeling the track release, so he was going to elect to start from the back of the grid.
Well, that's one good way to do it, is not record a time. So he does not have one in the books so far. Leighton Houseel, Colin Dana, Robert Porter, and Francois Brou are your top 5 here in qualifying. So as we wait for the rest of the session to conclude here, it's been kind of a wild few weeks here on SimTV. I've been out and traveling a lot, but kind of back at least for the next month or so before Grid Life Touring Cup heads to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. But of course, if you're interested in learning more about the Washington, D.C. region SCCA, you can head to their website or to their Facebook page to find out information on upcoming events, as the real world is sort of kicked back into gear as far as racing is concerned, which is a good thing for everybody, the DC region, SCCA included. As far as SimTV goes, we got lots more coming up this weekend. We got the Weekend Warriors on Sunday afternoon. That's the Spec Racer Fords. We head back into action on, I think we're off until Wednesday. We've got Spec MX5 Sim Racing Challenge on Wednesday evening. And Thursday, we don't have a lot coming up this week, do we?
No, yeah, we were going to take a little bit of a break this week.
Nice.
Yeah, which is a bit of a reliever. And then we're, back on Saturday with the new series.
That will be the Formula I Championship, and that will be F3 and F1 cars on Saturday afternoons. I'm really excited. We're going to have knockout qualifying and a little bit of everything. F3, F1, high-speed open-wheelers for the first time here on SimTV in something other than IndyCar form, which is really exciting and entertaining to see. So make sure that you're watching Saturday morning/afternoon. I think we'll be live around noonish on Saturday next weekend for the start of that. Qualifying concludes. Ken Houseel did jump to the top of the board at the last second with a 1:58.793. That will put him out in front of Thomas Leighton. Good qualifying effort there, Finian. We're going to have a different looking front row than I thought we were going to have.
Yeah, and he just snuck his way up there in the closing laps of qualifying. So, yeah, as you're saying, going to be slightly different.
As the field grids up right before 130R, you can see where the track passes over itself. We've got the field lined up. You see Francois Brou in the number 69 car, one of the Mercedes AMG GT3s, and he piloted that car to, I believe, a podium finish at Silverstone a few weeks ago, so we know there's speed in the car. But we'll roll through our starting lineup here on the front row. Ken Houseel's number 23, alongside Thomas Leighton in the number 8.
Yeah, then moving back to round number 2, Colin Dana, a solid qualifying effort from him, going to line up in 3rd place. Next to him, Robert Porter did pretty well at Road America. They're going to line up in the 136 in 4th.
In 5th place, Francois Brou starts in the number 69 AMG, and Chad Griffith starts in 6th in the number 7.
Cy Stafford going to start in the 719 in 7th place. Murphy Nichols going to line up in 8th.
In 9th place, Louis Alessi is going to start on the inside of row 5, the number 43. Andrew Chow, another Mercedes AMG, starts in 10th.
Yeah, rounding out your small grid tonight, going to be Scott Marker in 11th in the 77. Dave Fitzgerald going to round out the grid in 12th in the 91 car.
All right, and John Woolman, I don't believe, is going to be here. We got Colin Daner once again running one of the helmets that ceases to amaze me every time. As we, it's sort of terrifying. I've had nightmares about this for more than one night in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So thanks, Colin. As we gear up for the start, a lot of the BMW Z4s and a lot of Ferraris. I think the short wheelbase Z4 is going to be nicely tuned for the very technical Suzuka circuit, and the Ferrari with its mid-engine pointiness is going to be probably a pretty joyful car to drive around here. The Mercedes are a little bit boaty. I'm not sure that those are going to be a whole lot of fun. We'll see if either Andrew Chow or Francois Brou can pilot them to the front. We'll have a look here at the weather information. Current conditions, 65 degrees in the air, 72 degrees on the racetrack. Humidity just shy of 65%, so a pretty pleasant afternoon here in Suzuka, Japan. Population 200,000. This track has existed since 1962. Field rolls off towards the chicane. 60 minutes on the board for the final race of the season. Thomas Layton has had a stranglehold on the points this season, but Ken O'Seal not lingering too far behind. He will start on driver's right in pole position this time around. But through the Casio Triangle into the final sector of the course, O'Seal bring us down to the green flag. It'll be a very slow run down to the flagman here as we wait for the green flag to drop. 60 minutes in the DC region. SCCA iRacing League from Suzuka, Japan. We'll round out our season a little bit early as real racing returns to the United States and to the DC region. Green flag flies. We're racing at Suzuka for 60 minutes as the field fans out. Already the fourth place Colin Dana machine moves over as we head down into turn number 1.
Classic Suzuka Starwood, guys. 3 wide as they head through turn 1. Ooh, the 136 BMW of Rob Porter going to go way out wide. He's going to keep it on and keep it straight, but we're going to lose a ton of spots as he drops back down the order.
Yeah, Porter already suffering from a little bit of a push there from Thomas Layton, who dropped a spot. Colin Daner has moved into second place in the number 24 Ferrari. Timing and scoring going to appear at the top of your screen tonight as we head through the S's for the first time.
And again, very much a rhythm section for these guys, mostly single file. You can see them just now finally getting sorted out. Single file as the leaders head now towards Degner for the first time.
And into Degner curve, you're going to take a little bit of curb on driver's right just to help the car rotate in. But a big struggle for Thomas Layton on the start of that race.
Oh, Colin Danner goes flying into the safer barrier and gets a ton of damage to the left side of that machine.
Yeah, that for Colin Danner, that might be competitively race over for him. Let's have a look here as he entered the corner after Degner here, and he's just going to get on the curb and track out too wide. Gets in the gravel and just cannot get that car stopped and slams into the tire barrier. But Colin Daner's night competitively might be over. You see that car very much tracking poorly as it heads through the backside of the course. Up in front, O'Seal and Layton get strung back out. First and second, Francois Brou in third, Griffith fourth, and Sly Stafford in fifth.
Yeah, Brou trying to hold up Chad Griffith, who's hounding him in that BMW in the 7 car in fourth. Trying to look how to make a move into Spoon Curve. Not going to get it done. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit behind on that.
Bruce got Griffith to the inside for 130R. You do not want to run through your side-by-side, especially on cold tires. A lot of curve by Griffith. Brou runs way out wide of the exit of 130R. Side-by-side into the chicane. Casio Triangle for the first time. Brou hangs on, but you see the Mercedes really struggling to change direction here as they enter the second lap.
Yeah, but he keeps that BMW of Griffith in behind, so I'm interested in seeing between these two who wins out overall. Brou looking pretty quick, but Griffith still got some decent pace in behind.
Across the line for the first time, 1.3 seconds between O'Seal and Layton. That's going to be where the battle is tonight, but for third, Bruce still dealing with that blue and white BMW behind him as they head through turn number 2 and into the S's for the first time. The leaders might close up together, but for third and behind them as well, for I believe that's 6th place with Scott Merker, Murphy, Nichols, and Moore. Good battle back there as well.
Giant train of cars forming in behind Merker, and these guys know where to really go in the S's. You talked about, single file section. This is definitely one of them. Andrew Cho taking an interesting line through one of the S's corners, trying to go side by side with Murphy Nichols.
Not really a good place to try it, so he offsets the driver's right. We'll have another stab at him. Sly Stafford has gone through, past Chad Griffith into fourth. He'll attack Francois Brou for third. Big jump over the curb for the number 29 of Andrew Chow, eating up the rear bumper of Murphy Nichols, but he cannot get the power down in corner exit. He has to back out before they head to hairpin.
Yeah, that's the problem. The way he took that corner, had to back out quite a bit. Now you see into the hairpin to Dave Fitzgerald, also trying to make a move on Chow as well. Nowhere for him to go.
Fitzgerald started at the rear of this field, back in 12th position, already moved his way up into 9th, and he's definitely fast enough where he can finish up inside the top 5 tonight, I think, as we watch these drivers battle onto the backside. Meanwhile, back for third place, Francois Brou has his hands full with Stafford in a Ferrari and Griffith in a BMW.
And Stafford here looking to get a pretty decent run. Going to try to get a little bit of draft as well down the back straightaway. This is what we're talking about too. You got to make that pass before you get to 130R. You do not want to head through there side by side.
I don't think you can do it without crashing each other. Now through 130R, Stafford lifts just enough. to stay behind the 69 car into the Casio triangle, offsetting to driver's right. Has a look there to force Brew to look out. Meanwhile, behind him, trouble. And this is a mess.
Yeah, Robert Porter completely misses the corner after heading 3 wide there for a second into the chicane.
He's had another look, and I think he just, let's run on board, because he had a really good run side by side with Chow and Nichols. Dave Fitzgerald lifts, and Porter just has a big send up the inside. Couldn't get the car slowed on down. There was a bit of a touch there with Andrew Chow, but looks like Porter got back on track. It's been a troubled start to the day for the 136 car.
Yeah, and also Andrew Chow got really lucky that he didn't get more damage from that. I'm sure he had a bit of a heart attack noticing a car go flying in front of him.
I don't even think he bent a dive plane on that car, so it should be just fine. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, Ken Ausiel has led the first 2 laps of this race as we enter our 3rd circuit around Suzuka. Thomas Layton in behind is closing that gap, though.
And here's going to be the problem, though. I think, passing fairly difficult around a place like Suzuka. There's not a whole lot of opportunities in GT3 cars, so Layton's going to have his work cut out for him, but again, he does have the advantage of being the faster car.
Look at Sly Stafford. He's all over Francois Brew, out to driver's left into hairpin. Griffith has nowhere to go here. Behind them, Murphy Nichols and Dave Fitzgerald trading spots for 8th place. We're trying to, and Louis Alessi in the 43 in behind them. 3 Z4s line of stern as they head through hairpin and gas it up and head to smooth curve.
Fitzgerald trying to make a move, wasn't able to quite get it done on Nichols, still riding in behind that 5 machine.
And the BMW really, it's a big advantage is got a lot of aero on it, and it's got a pretty short wheelbase, so it's definitely one of the more nimble cars out here. See Fitzgerald struggling to get the thing rotated around, though, so he'll drop off a little bit. Meanwhile, for 3rd, still a 3-horse race here. Mercedes, Ferrari, BMW. The only instance of racing...
Whoa! Sly Stafford goes flying around out of 130R.
And behind them, you see Merker and Andrew Chow for a moment. They were door-to-door, but Stafford was running up in 4th spot and just lost the position just like that. Was it too much curve on the inside here, or did he just get loose?
He got loose even before he hit the curb. I think he just threw the car too hard into the corner, and then the back end just came around, which is very typical for the Ferrari.
Yeah, it's definitely unstable through high-speed corners, and you see right there, just lets go. Even with the big wing on the rear end, it's still pretty unstable at high speeds, and Stafford goes around for a loop. He will end up back in 12th position. Up at the front of the field, half a second remains between our race leaders. Ausiel and Thomas Layton last time by ran dead even lap times of 1:59.874 for both those drivers as we jump back to Nichols and Dave Fitzgerald as they scrap for 7th.
Yeah, Fitzgerald did not put a qualifying effort in, elected to start in the back of the grid, so he's just been trying to move himself up. Oh, he's going to go wide in the S's. It barely keeps it on, but he's got 2 cars in behind him, and it looks like they're both going to get around before Degner.
That was Alessi and Porter that got through Fitzgerald, so he seems like he's struggling in behind other drivers right now, maybe with the sight lines. One thing about Suzuka fitting is that it's a very difficult track to drive. It's really, really technical, and it's not easy to learn. And I think we're seeing a lot of drivers maybe struggling with that just a little bit here as we head into the meat of this race. So Porter and Fitzgerald now fighting as Alessi pulls away in 8th. It's all for about 7th spot.
Oh, and how about this for a little interesting fact? Last lap, Ausiel and Layton ran identical lap times.
I mentioned that at the beginning of the lap, Finney, and it's been pretty amazing to watch how close they've been. You mentioned that last week, Ausiel ran in the McLaren at Road America, which I thought would have been the right car choice, but he's been in the BMW for the rest of the season, so I do question changing the car mid-season. It's a totally different setup approach, which I think he sort of missed that last week at Road America and struggled there. But out in front right now, he's pretty much running dead even. That time through was a 10th quicker for Layton. I do think Layton's the better car, but we're too close to make this easy.
Yeah, and it's starting to get closer and closer. Layton started to make less and less inroads as this run has gone on. He was making some big gaps in. Looks like Ausiel, whatever, if he had any problems at the beginning of the race, he sorted them out and is now keeping a consistent group ahead of Layton.
And through the S's, and this is just a balance portion here. You're just trying to use every little bit of racetrack and dance the car on the edge of grip. Sorry to interrupt you there, Finney, but a half a second, it continues to fall just little by little as they head through the tail end of the S's and up to Degner.
I was going to point out that Robert Porter, with his struggles in the race, he just got around Louis Alessi to put himself back in 8th. Oh, and it looks like Murphy Nichols had some trouble as well in the S as he just got back on track in front of Porter and company.
7, 8, 9, 10 all together as we head through the backside of the course. 4 Z4s on top of each other. If your question was what car is the most popular one right now in GT3, well, there's your answer.
Yeah, all of them running astern here around the midfield. And Porter getting a decent run, and Nichols here eventually with a run down into the hairpin. And this is a really tough place to make a corner. We've seen time and time again in real life, guys chucking it up the inside, diving deep on the brakes. But he really compromised to run off the corner and also look back and call in dinner. I'm still amazed this car is running straight after he pounded the wall earlier in lap 1.
I thought he had more significant damage. He didn't come to pit lane to fix anything. But he's got Sly Stafford behind him, and Stafford's car is significantly less damage, so he should have a pretty easy time getting by here. But Hayner's not gonna, he's gonna lose it. He's gonna spin right in front of Stafford. Stafford's gonna sneak by on the inside and pick up 11th spot. Or the race lead. Sorry, actually, let's go back to 7th. Here's Porter, and I believe that's Murphy Nichols. He has just gotten by. That's a change in position for 7th through 130R. Oh, look at Dave Fitzgerald right on the tailpipes of Louis Alessi through that final corner.
And it's amazing to see how many cars are close together back here. And I think a lot of it's due to the fact that a lot of these cars have made mistakes at one point to kind of put them back here. And you see Fitzgerald, big run on Alessi. And I think Alessi, this is the second time, a lap earlier, Porter got around in the same way. I think Alessi's just running a lot more wing. He's really slow on the straights.
And Fitzgerald chops down on the inside. He'll take 9th place away. Back up at the front of the field, Leighton has tracked down Halseal. It's only about 5 car lengths between them as they head into Degner Curve. Just such a fast fling through here. Then down, slamming on the binders to get that car rotated in. I feel like the Ferrari's a hair better on the brakes as well as they run up to, looks like hairpin here.
And Leighton made a much more significant inroad last lap through. Now you see all the way to the back bumper of Halseal and got a little bit of a better exit off the corner than he did.
Halseal's been pretty solid enough to be able to hang on to the lead for the first 12 minutes of this race. We still have 48 minutes to go. Trouble for Andrew Chow in the Mercedes. He's looped it. I think this is right after, it's right after Degner, I believe.
Yep.
And jumps the curb. Already offset a little bit, just got the left rear tire in the dirt. And just a simple loop. And he'll keep that car rolling, no big issues here. Turned in with the left rear still kind of unbalanced. And a slow, lazy spin for Andrew Chow, but he jumps back to 12. Having a lot of attrition, not a lot of damage to any car so far as we go back to lead. Nose to tail, half a second between them.
Oh, and Leighton had a very poor run through the chicane. All the time that he made up on the last lap, he lost it coming through that chicane right there. So he's going to have to make that all back up on Halseal.
47 minutes to go. Halseal and Leighton are in a race of their own. Here they come down the front straightaway, all by their lonesome. There's Halseal. Leighton into the shot now is Francois Brou. 11 seconds back. Then right behind him, Chad Griffith. Then 10 seconds behind that, Robert Porter, Merker, Murphy Nichols, Louis Alessi, Stafford, and Colin Daner. Your top 10 with Fitzgerald and Chow rounding out the rest of the field. Brou the S's again. Halseal's been good. I feel like Leighton's been quicker, but making more mistakes than the 23.
That's kind of the big problem. Again, that's really been for most of the drivers in the field is making mistakes. You talk about how technical this track is. It's a very difficult track to drive. It's going to mean that you're going to have more driver error in this race. And it's not, just completely spinning out the small mistakes, running a little bit wide, compromising your exit out of some of these corners. And Halseal seems to be mitigating those mistakes, and I think that's why he's maintaining this lead over Leighton. He's starting to struggle here.
And Leighton could be heating up the tires a bit too much as well. The GT3 tire is pretty sensitive to overheating and staying overheated. Pretty hard to cool them down once they're hot, with about a quarter of this race in the books so far. Jumping back to 8th place, there's Louis Alessi in the 43. Started this race in 9th. He's gained 1 spot. Stafford started in 7th, climbed as high as 4th, or spinning out and heading back to 12th. Murphy Nichols real slow. He's going to get split in middle, 3 wide. I think Nichols has to slow down.
Yeah, he didn't have a slowdown. He almost had a spin in Degner. He pretty much drifted through the corner. It's actually pretty impressive.
There's a look. Woo! That was very impressive. Traction control helping a little bit there, but he saved it.
Hey, we are in Japan, so perfect place to try to do that.
I'm not exactly sure that the drifting scene is what Murphy Nichols entered to race tonight, but he did a pretty good job either way. As he lets Alessi go wide, and through goes Stafford through. And Alessi's still off track. He'll get back on course. He'll give up 2 or 3 spots in the process.
Even Colin Daner will go around, and Daner is still putting around in 9th place with that car.
So Ken O'Seal continues to lead the race as they head down through turns 1 and 2. Leighton was 0.3 slower that time.
Yeah, second lap in a row that O'Seal's been faster than Leighton, so I'm curious to see if this is going to maintain for the rest of the race, or if Leighton's just starting to make more and more errors that have been slowing him down.
Dave Fitzgerald's had trouble. I think this is in the Casio Triangle. Let's go back and see what happened. He's got a bit of a dented wing from another issue somewhere else and just entered the corner too hot. Gets up on the AstroTurf, and through goes Andrew Chow, who had an earlier spin. It's been Russian roulette back here with whoever's last.
Yeah, and for Fitzgerald, what happened to him, how he got that wing damage, he just got wide in one of the corners in the S's a lap or 2 ago and smacked the wall. So he's coming to the pits looking to repair that car, I'm sure, because that's definitely not helping him with downforce-wise.
No, this is definitely a high downforce racetrack where the downforce will help you significantly to get around here. So 44 minutes to go. We jump back up to the race leaders because Leighton's chase is still on for the race leader. O'Seal's been more consistent, but Leighton's been faster. Which one do you think is going to work? I mean, we know how good Leighton is, but O'Seal's been not showing any weaknesses so far.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think, again, if Leighton can kind of muster the pace we saw him earlier in the race, I think he might be able to bring us something. Because, again, he's the only driver to run lap under 2 minutes in the race. Everyone else has been slower than that, especially Ken O'Seal, whose fastest time is, I think, 3 or 4 tenths up on Leighton. So Leighton, again, faster car. So I think if you can stop mitigating mistakes and find a way to close the gap back to O'Seal and make the pass, which I think is going to be the trickiest part, we could see him up and top. But again, O'Seal, again, not making any mistakes and just staying on the lead. He's been doing a really solid job.
Pretty good run through the final corners for Leighton across the line this time. Still slower than O'Seal, so the lead extends to 1.3 seconds. So I think Ken's really showing his strength here at this racetrack. And this is not a track, we were discussing this before, not a very popular racetrack when it comes to iRacing in general. So I'm sort of surprised to see Ken O'Seal running up here, running away from a guy like Leighton. Oh, he's off! The leader's off! He's had a big incident and big damage to the front of that race car. What had happened?
Yeah, and just as we were talking about him making almost no mistakes so far this race, there he has it right in the S's, and it's big damage to that BMW.
What happened to the race leader? He was just rocking it off straight. I have no idea.
He clipped the grass here when he's trying to swing out wide for the entry. You'll see now into this corner. Watch how wide he gets.
Oh, just the slightest.
Yep. Around he goes.
And just the slightest of mistakes, and this is so painful to watch because we were mentioning how good you have to be to stay out in front of someone like Leighton, and just the slightest of touch, you see the grass there, and just he overcorrects to the right to try to save the car from spinning, and I think he would have been better off going left there, Finian. And all that damage that he's got now is certainly going to be a big hindrance here. We'll see if he can run some decent lap times, but I'm certain that car is not going to handle or be as aerodynamically efficient as it was before.
I imagine he's going to probably have to pit for damage. I mean, he can afford it, considering how quick he is compared to the rest of the field, he can afford to just come into the pits, put himself back, and then just drive his way back up. But definitely that is significant damage to be driving around with.
And I think one of the things, so we mentioned last week that he ran one of the McLarens. Take a look at the cockpit of the Z4. See how much the wheels stick out from the cockpit there? This is not something you see in the McLaren. The McLaren's greenhouse is a lot wider, and the edges of your wheels are not so far off center. I just have to wonder if he's not quite used to sitting, again, after running the McLaren last week, if he was not quite used to having his wheels that far out, and just that slight miscalculation was enough to take him off track.
Actually, so it looks like as he passes by the pits, he's going to stay out here and try to catch it back up to Leighton. So best of luck to him. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of his lap times are because of that.
Well, he's going to have to diagnose it here, and I think this lap is a very important lap. What he wants to do is run as cleanly as possible to get kind of a baseline. All right, where's my damage at? How do I have to drive to be able to handle running down Thomas Leighton? So Leighton is not running the fastest laps, or faster laps, or was not running faster laps than Ken O'Seal before. So if Hausiel can at least get close to matching Leighton, I still think he's sort of in this, 4.5 seconds back. Leighton's been making a lot of mistakes too, just not as crucial or critical as the one we just saw Hausiel make.
Yeah, no, really the kind of eyes go to Leighton now and make sure, again, we saw him making small errors here and there. He's got a hope now that he's got a big chance to take home the win if he doesn't make a major mistake like we saw with Hausiel and get some self-damage.
There's Andrew Chow in the 10th spot, Louis Alessi behind him.
Yeah, and the front straight is honestly, this is the third time we've seen Alessi being passed on the front straightaway. I think he's regretting just how much wing he's been running because everyone's been able to just kind of draft back up to him and shoot around him regardless.
Well,
so.
You want to run a lot of wing here, but I think the problem is the Z4 already isn't known for being a rocket ship on the straights, so it's really not helping when you have probably close to max wing and you're in the Z4. We'll let Andrew Chow, the Mercedes, which is definitely a straight line missile. I think that's where his weakness is. You see Chow close in now on Murphy Nichols for 9th. I think everybody from Colin Daner on back has been in last for at least some time tonight. Kind of amazing how many times it's switched around. Oh, wait, Thomas Leighton has made a mistake. He's back to 2nd.
Oh no, and just again, just as we're talking about him not having to make a mistake, he just made a mistake into Spoon.
Yeah, here's a look into the braking zone. Just tracks out, and again, same thing, just gets the turf just a little bit, slides out wide, and Hausiel goes back to the front, now with a 1.5 second lead. So we've seen a switcheroo as Sly Stafford's had issues as well. I think every car in this field other than Francois Brou has had some sort of major issue here tonight. Now that I said that, I think Bru's on a crash course with spin, but here's another look. Stafford, exact same thing. Just catches the grass with the right rear tire and around he goes.
It's been really rough for a lot of the drivers in the field tonight, struggling. Yeah, and I think from the looks of it looks like Francois Brou and Chad Griffith are the only drivers who have not made a mistake. Everyone else has gone for at least some spin or half spin.
So the race leader, with all the damage that he had, last time through ran at 2:01.559, which really isn't that far off pace. So I'm not sure the damage is hugely affecting the performance of that car. Leighton, 1.5 seconds behind now. His car is still perfect in terms of the bodywork, but I think the ego is shaking a little bit after that spin.
Yeah, I can't imagine also the tires doing too incredibly well at the moment. A little bit overheated, but I think that should be quick to overcome. Just run a little bit conservative for a lap or two, and then you should be back down at operating temperature, and you can try to chase back Hausiel. Now, this is going to be interesting because we saw Leighton, he was struggling to try to catch back up to Hausiel and make the pass. Now, is that damage going to start hurting Hausiel, which I would think it would, and is this enough for Leighton to make that pass?
It has slowed Ken down slightly, and it might be the difference, all he needs. Murphy Nichols and Louis Alessi, this is for 9th place. So you see Alessi tracking out way wide. Murphy Nichols a little bit too tight to driver's left that time. Got the grass a little bit. Up the road, you see Colin Daner, Andrew Chow for 7th and 8th.
Whoa, and Daner a little bit sideways coming out of the hairpin.
The field's spread out just a little bit, and I think this is what some of the drivers need, Finian, is they just need their own clear track where they don't have any distractions. Suzuka is a track that will come out and bite you. And Road America, remember last week, the curbing at Road America is pretty forgiving. There's quite a bit of it, and you can use it because it's relatively flat. Here at Suzuka, they have a little bit of FAA standard Vallelunga curbing, and then it's turf or grass right beyond that, and that stuff is very slippery, not like the pavement we were on last week at Road America. Gonna kind of retrain yourself. That time through, Leighton was a 10th faster than leader.
Yeah, that's kind of what we expected here. So now as Leighton starts to get closer back up again, he's also got to be careful too, because as we were talking about it too, he's been taking out a lot of the curbs, and that was exactly why he spun out in Spooter's turn. Took too much curb, went onto the turf, and spun that Ferrari around. So he's got to just be a little bit careful again not to make a second mistake, because that could definitely cost him the race one.
And I don't think that I don't think there's any place other than maybe Degner where you can take too much apex curb. I think it's all about the exit curb. Big slam on the OECs out in the turf, and that's how dangerous that is. You can slam the apex, you want to be really careful tracking out though, and that's where all the trouble has been so far tonight. As Leighton closes within about a second and a 10th of the race leader as they head into hairpin. Meanwhile, back for 7th, Colin Daner has got a mirror full of Andrew Chow in the Mercedes AMG.
This is Chow driving up through the field again. Started relatively down the order back in 10th, went up all the way to I think 6th or 5th. Then had his little spin down in Degner. Working his way back up. He's got Daner and Merker right up above him.
This is where the AMG can turn it a little bit sooner, take a bit more curb, a bit softer setup than the Ferrari. And it's, again, the front engine rear-wheel drive platform is really stable in comparison to the mid-engine car, which can be very sketchy in high-speed situations. Really, he overslowed slightly for that corner and lost some ground on exit.
Yeah, that hairpin, man. You can take that corner 100 different ways, and almost all the ways you can take it are wrong are going to be slower than your competitors. The really tough corner setup for what we saw Chow just get a little bit behind on the corner, but now heading through Spoon. And man, you can see how close these guys are tracking out to that white line and almost into the grass, like we saw with Leighton.
It's just so tempting to use that little bit of extra runoff area, but. And because you can use it, the only thing it'll get you is an incident, which doesn't really matter all that much in this race. So I think the only concern is the grip level loss that you get. Look at the Mercedes close in. You heard the grass on the right side of the car. He trailed the tires off in there. Closes in on the Ferrari. Has a look up into Casio Triangle right to the rear bumper of Daner as they jump the curbs.
Yeah, then here now it's a matter of getting it. Didn't take an aggressive line through the exit of the chicane, but this is again where the power comes down, and if you can try to get past Daner here.
See Daner going really defensive on the front straight. He's trying to keep the Mercedes behind him as they head down into the first corner. Chow on driver's left, and then now Daner's going to wash out to the left, but he'll get a really good run into turn 2. As they now are to chase each other through the SCCA. Scott Merker, the very brightly colored, the confetti Z4 just up the lane from Daner and Chow. You see what Chow's having to do. He's having to kind of square off the S's here a little bit. He charges the corner, tracks out straight, and then cuts in. The Mercedes is not a good car in transient maneuvers. It really doesn't like doing these lazy bends back and forth. It's a very strong car in a straight line and on power. And Daner's able to kind of float the Ferrari through there a lot more effectively than the trailing Mercedes. And gained a little bit through the S's, but loses it in the more point-and-shoot section, which is where we are right now. Sly Stafford has just had an issue. He will hit pit lane.
Nichols also has had a little bit of an issue off the track for him in Dagner.
So while the 7th place dogfight begins to spool back up, we'll head back to the race lead because it's only about 3 car lengths between Hausiel and Leighton as they come out of the final corner to complete the 13th lap of approximately 30. We're closing in on halfway, and Hausiel and Leighton have led every single lap so far. Hausiel has led 12 of the 14 laps. And Thomas Leighton has led the other.
Yeah, that was right after Hausiel spun. Leighton took the lead, and then that very lap after he came across the line, spun himself in Spoon curve. So, yeah, back pretty much where we started, although not exactly again with the damage that Hausiel got. So you can see how much more time we're talking about the Ferrari being pretty good in these maneuvers, and you can see how much time he makes up through the S's.
Leighton trying to move this Ferrari as delicately as possible. You see Hausiel track way out to the edge of the racetrack. And as the battle heats up for the final half of this race, I think the urgency is going to rise a little bit. Again, the first part of the race, I don't think you're super concerned with where your position. You're just worried about the other drivers around you. Then you get kind of into this middle of the race rhythm where you're just lapping. You get down towards the end of the race, you got a guy chasing you. It's going to force you to run a little bit faster, a little bit harder. You see less than a car length now as they head into hairpin.
Yeah, and Leighton charging the corner entry got a little bit worse of an exit than he would have liked, but again, still closing in on Hausiel. I think this is the closest he's gotten since the start of the race.
Dave Fitzgerald has gone around. He has gone way off in the Casio Triangle, backs up back onto the circuit in the number 91 Gulf liveried Z4. And he was already unstable coming through 130R. He tracks out to the right, comes back to the left, gets on the binders, and just in too hot and just came to a stop. And instead of taking the slowdown, which might have been faster, he backs up onto the circuit.
I would have thought though, you would think the slowdown would be faster, but decided to still keep it on the track.
Murphy Nichols, issue down. I believe this is after Dagner, where I head up under the bridge. And he's been struggling with this particular area.
Yeah, and this has not been good for him, but for Leighton and Hausiel, they got really close together. Leighton almost ended up hitting the back bumper of the Hausiel heading through the chicane.
Murphy Nichols did catch the wall there. A big dive on the brakes into turn number 1. Layton looks out to driver's right. I'm not sure that he fully intended to go for the pass, but it certainly spooked me and probably Ken Ausil as they battle, they dogfight for the race lead through the S's with half the race expired and half the race left to go. Z4 versus Ferrari. It's Germany versus Italy as they head into the 15th lap.
Germany versus Italy and Japan. Where have we seen this trio
Oh,
before?
no. I wasn't going to say it. Was Italy an Allied power?
No, they were not. They were an Axis power. They got liberated by the Allies.
I see. Okay. Ooh, big unstable jump for Ausil over Degner. Tracking back out again at the exit. And again, Layton has been a lot faster, but just not quite as consistent. But I don't think anybody's been consistent. Maybe Francois Brou, who has been, and Chad Griffith, our 3rd and 4th place cars, have been solidly stuck there for most of the night.
Yeah, they're just kind of running at their own pace, and really that's been playing to the benefit again, running 3rd and 4th, in comparison to the struggles of the rest of the field. But Ausil and Layton, and I was actually surprised Layton fell off a lot after being so close on the front straightaway. By the time they got the spoon here, he's almost back a second again.
Again, I don't think the entire first half of the track is a place where you can really follow closely. It's definitely advantageous to be the lead car in that engagement. Here's Merker and Daner. This is for 7th. Big slow up for Merker on corner exit. Here comes Daner up the inside as they head into hairpin.
Going to be looking now at the outside as they go into the hairpin. Going to make a big dive for Daner. Going to try to cut Merker off, and indeed it's going to be successful in that pass.
On the outside for Colin Daner in the 24 car, moves his way back up into the 7th spot. Dave Fitzgerald has pulled off the racetrack into pit lane. Back to the race lead, though, 0.3 of a second with 29.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, I'm curious now for Layton if he's going to maybe try to manage this gap, just keep a little bit of distance between himself and Ausil when they head to the S's so he doesn't lose that much time like he did last lap.
See him cut the corner a little bit tighter through turn number 2. Lines himself up. It's all about stringing corners together through here. Rhythm section. Charges that a little bit hard. Can he carry the speed now? He's already offset and struggling to stay to the inside.
And this is exactly why it's a rhythm section. We saw him go wide in that one corner and messed up the next 3 as he tries to get back in line.
Did get it sorted out. He did lose 3 or 4 car lengths in that exchange as they run now down to Degner again. 4/10 between the race leaders. Really aggressive as Layton threw the right-hander up underneath the bridge. And again, I like this Ferrari better on the brakes. You see how much he closes here, but the Z4 gets up and just digs out of the corners. Watch it pull away.
Yeah, Layton, if he can manage his gap now across the back straightaway and the front straightaway, he could be looking at taking the race lead here. Depends on the exit that he gets out of Spoon.
Oh, he's right there, about a foot behind the bumper of the BMW liveried Z4. Now the run into 130R. You see Ausil going, hugging driver's left. Almost looked like he was going defensive for a moment. I'm not sure that he thinks Layton would go for a pass here. But certainly if you get a run through 130R, you can have a look at the Casio Triangle. Big cut for Layton. He turned in and the car just didn't set and go. You saw him turn into the car lagged as you see Ausil offset to driver's right to protect into Casio Triangle. Layton struggling to keep overlap on the 23 as they head through the final corners in the sector. But again, watching the 8 car turn in to 130R fitting, it looked like he turned the wheel, and it took a second for the suspension and tire sidewall to set, and that lag sort of left him a little bit off the apex of where he wanted to be.
Yeah, he did actually get a pretty decent corner in comparison to Ausil, but it's just, again, really sketchy when we're talking about the Ferrari in high downforce corners, especially a textbook example 130R. Really sketchy for the Ferraris to head through there at such a high rate of speed.
And he also, I think he hit the apex nicely. I think what I was trying to say is when he turned in, I think he was aiming a little bit left of the apex to really clobber the inside curb. But it's probably a good thing that he's not doing that because, as you mentioned, the Ferrari's so unstable at high speed. The second you add really high suspension compression or any sort of bouncing in the suspension geometry, it just makes the car so much more unstable. It gets the aero unsealed from the ground and makes the car really, really shady and sketchy. You see him attacking the curbs here in the slower sections because you're not relying on all that aerodynamic downforce as you are in the faster parts of the track.
Really deep on the brakes into the hairpin. You see him trying to get a better exit. He's trying to set him up for this exit, but just can't get down on the power. And you saw him get a little bit loose there, too, behind Alcido.
Oh, yeah, the Z4 really gets up and digs, as I mentioned. It squats and just takes off. Really, the Z4's strength is its acceleration and nimbleness in relation to the Ferrari. I do think the Ferrari is a hair better in the high-speed maneuvers. Again, it looses fast, and it might be sort of to the point where you're crashing all the time, but if you can control the Ferrari, it definitely can rotate around on you and make it a pretty enjoyable car to drive. There you go, you see him jump. You actually heard the grass under the fender liner in 130R. Deep on the brakes again into the final corner. Big cut on left, big cut on right, closes in. Again, that's where the Ferrari strength is closing on braking. Down under 3.5 tenths of a second.
Ooh.
Sly Stafford is around. That's, I believe, over in turn 2.
Yeah, it's not been a particularly good run in his machine tonight.
Started off as a good run, got up into 5th. Ended up spinning out, and it all went bad from there. But you see him just track out a little bit wide, gets in the turf, and lazy spin. Looks like he's called it a night. Back to the race lead. Layton still working over Ken Alcido. You see Ken a little bit offset to the left. He needed to be a bit tighter, and look at how much Layton gains right there.
But he's struggling. That car is struggling to turn in the dirty air right up in behind Ken Alcido. That's again where he's really losing out through that first sector.
In a Degner curve. Nose to tail, less than a car length between them. Way deep on the brakes is Thomas Layton.
Oh, he got a good run. We're talking about the Ferrari being better on the brakes. Going to have a little bit of a look. Now going to peel back in behind Alcido. See what he does down.
Here he goes!
Into the hairpin. Going to try to force Alcido out of the way, but it's not enough.
Where have we seen that move before? Think back to GT World Challenge America's GT rivals, Brian Heitkotter and David Perel. As they came down into the hairpin, it was the dive by Perel that...
Ironically in a Ferrari too.
Ironically in a Ferrari that ended up spinning them out and collecting Perel a penalty, which was one of the most controversial moments of the GT Rivals season and created a season-long rivalry between Heitkotter and Perel, and that's almost what we saw right there as they entered turn number 11. Meanwhile, for Alcido, he's able to pull a bit of a gap now, 7 tenths of a second with 23 minutes to go, and getting down to the point where you're starting to get exhausted. You're playing around with the fuel maps if you need to save fuel to the end, but again, the Z4 and Ferrari chosen because they're pretty efficient on fuel. A guy like Francois Brou in the Mercedes AMG has to save a bit more with that thundering Mercedes V8.
Yeah, you pay for power and fuel mileage, really.
Yeah, you do.
Because, like,
but it's fun to go fast.
And it is, especially with the sound too. The Mercedes just really can't be beat by too many cars.
No, it is definitely a thunderous sound. One of those very much like the Corvette C7 GT Le Mans car, where as it goes by, you just feel the ground shake. You can almost feel the pressure waves coming out of the exhaust system of that car. Whereas the Z4 Ferrari are a bit more muted. The Ferrari itself is so quiet, you pretty much just hear the turbo noises on it in the real world. But a very elegant racing machine, as opposed to the Z4, which is definitely brute force in comparison.
Oh, speaking of brute force, Alcido brute force, that corner went really wide into the grass, got dangerously close to spinning out.
22 minutes to go. Layton has been all over Alcido, but has not found a way around. Do you foresee these drivers swapping positions, or do you think it's Alcido's race to lose?
I mean, it's really tough to call. We saw Layton, he was so close to getting the pass done as they head through the hairpin right there last lap. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get the pass done, but I mean, him being able to make that move, it's showing me he's looking like he might have a shot here. I think he can just start mounting pressure on Alcido. I think the odds, I think, in this race are in Layton's favor, but only slightly.
In a spoon curve now. Why is it called spoon curve? Well, if you look from up above, it looks very much like a spoon. Funny enough. As they head now down the kinked back straightaway under the trees, and it's a really scenic section of the race course as well. Layton now about 7 tenths back, which is the largest the gap has been in the last 10 or so minutes. Look how much he closes on the brakes. That's just so much better. Able to close 7 tenths down to 3 tenths as they come through the final corner.
Yeah, I've been thinking. It seemed like he was missing that the left turn in that chicane. And it's been costing some time. He absolutely ramped over and got a little bit loose doing so, but slightly better exit than before.
You can be relatively aggressive on those curbs and those little anti-cut curbs through that final corner. The iRacing slowdown system will catch you if you take a bit too much, so you have to be sort of careful and balance the risk versus reward. Very much like 130R, which is a corner that I always feel like you either drive way too hard or you way underdrive it. It's very difficult to get a really solid 130R without making a big mistake. Now accelerating towards the far side of the track once again for Thomas Layton. Big jump over the curb into Degner. Right up to the rear of the Z4. He's been getting a pretty solid run towards hairpin. I think the pass has to happen either into turn 1 or into hairpin. I'm not really sure that there's a great opportunity anywhere else other than maybe the Casio triangle, but that gets so tight so quick, I'm not sure that's a good passing zone.
No, it really isn't. And I mean, if it comes down to it, I mean, beggars can't be choosers, so Layton might have to make a pass down there. But again, like you were saying, you're kind of limited considering how big this track is. You're limited to only a few sections of track. As you see, Andrew Chow, he just gotten back past Daner after he made a mistake in the last lap.
Daner took a swipe at him, wasn't able to complete any sort of maneuver on him. I also noticed Andrew Chow's right rear tail light has gone dysfunctional, so I think he's had a bit of a tap in the rear at one point or another. Knock out that tail light. See it missing segments in the LEDs there. Now back to the front. Really good on the brakes this Layton. Less than 20 minutes to go. We're down to the last third of this race. Now Seal's tucking it in very tightly onto the front straight, and that's gathering him about a car length or two. I think Layton could learn something there. Even, like, this is something that you also see in the Watkins Glen S's in the final right-hander. The natural racing line would pull you out a little bit farther to the side of the track, but you want to tug it in tight just to gain a couple extra feet on the driver behind you. As we go back to Colin Daner and Andrew Chow, they've swapped positions again.
I think Chow's made another mistake, I imagine, that Daner's gone around him. Indeed, it was just right before in Spoon Curve.
Yeah, here's a look. Actually, Andrew Chow charges the corner here. Watch him make the mistake. He runs off, and then also watch Colin Daner. He also made a mistake, just not...
Oh, our leaders have wrecked. Layton and Halcyon have gotten into each other.
Oh, no. Trouble for the top spot. Halcyon's gone around. Layton has also gone around. They'll get back rolling with 18 minutes to go, and I think we're going to see an exchange for position, and he'll let Halcyon back by. And this is very much like what we saw in the ACC GT Rivals Championship. So what happened here? I have to imagine that Layton, oh yeah, just dove up the inside and just got into the back of him and turned him around. Big mistake there on Layton's part. Miscalculation for sure. Yeah, there was no hole there. I don't think he meant to go for it. He kind of got the rear of the Z4, not really the side, but they gave up a pretty good amount of time, but still 14.5 seconds back to Francois Bruce, so it's still their race to lose at the front. But now they've shaken off those nerves a little bit. Let's go back to Daner and Chow for 6th.
Checking really close in the S's, dying to get back past this Ferrari.
Oh, he's off.
Ferrari, yep, goes off the track, and Chow gonna sneak his way on by.
Back to the race leaders, 0.3 of a second between them now as they head down the back straightaway under the trees. Layton has got to be a little bit shaken up again. Every time you make a mistake like that, you're really trying to build some trust between you and the drivers around you, and that's sort of a breakage of that trust. And for Halcyon, he's going to be a little more skeptical of where Layton's putting the nose, and Layton himself is going to be more careful, and that means less aggressive. Every time you're less aggressive, you're taking away a chance, potentially, for a maneuver that could take you to the win.
You're also less likely to go around.
It's also, yeah, aggressive always goes around. Thanks, Rick Allen. Someday no one will remember that, and it'll be just an inside joke.
I hope that day never happens, because, man, what a line.
Aggressive. The aggressive goes around. Watkins Glen 2016, everybody. 16 minutes to go, and our two flight leaders having a dogfight at the front. Chow and Daner, still 7/10 between them, and I'm not sure that we've totally seen the end of this. They've swapped positions probably 6 or 7 times now.
Yeah, Chow's just not been able to break away unless it's not due to pace. He's just been making too many errors and allowing Dana to catch back up. So we'll see here if he can finally break away in that Mercedes, which is definitely faster than the 24 at the moment. And still props to Dana considering the damage of the car. You can see he's missing the engine cover on the rear of that car, and he's been putting around with significant damage since lap 1 of this race. So, and still running in 7th, so solid job to him.
It's not the aerodynamic masterpiece that it was at the beginning of the race. And it's that piece of Lexan is probably sitting somewhere on the side of the racetrack somewhere. And would like to be returned to its owner back in the paddock, so if you find it. Alceel and Leighton still 6/10 between them as they head into 130R. Working lap number 22 of approximately 30, so it will be about 8 laps to go this time by.
Pretty much looking at what we were earlier, nothing's really changed between these two, although Alceel I think has some slightly more rear end damage, and oddly enough, Leighton didn't really get anything out of that.
Well,
in front of that car is still looking fine.
I learned my lesson because the last time I pulled away from these guys, they crashed. So I think we're going to keep the cameras on these guys for the majority of the rest of the time. 15 minutes to go, the last quarter of this race. And really closing through turn number 2, forcing Alceel to look up in the mirror. That all that distraction is so hard to deal with at a track like this. Put an inch wrong, and you're going to go around for a loop. We've seen everybody in the field do it except for Brew and Griffith. Exact same scenario again. And Leighton's really flirting with a potential for a penalty here.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to scare Alceel out of the line and force him into an error so he can get a bit of a run maybe down into the corner here. But
I think he scared him when he sent him around for a slide at like 90 miles an hour. But I mean, maybe they ask Ken for that. Andrew Chow, is that a problem?
Again,
he actually just had to pit lane. I'm wondering, oh yeah, this was voluntary, so just didn't think he'd make it to the end on fuel. Again, the Mercedes, not exactly the most fuel efficient of the cars out there on the racetrack. He will return to the racetrack back, it looks like for now, in 7th. Leighton into Spoon curve now, closing the gap back up.
I think he's also been struggling too, from what I've noticed, is these corners right before a straightaway. He's been not getting as good of an exit as Ken Alceel has been, and that's where Alceel's been starting to pull away. But now he's starting to get a little bit better at that. You can see the gap a lot closer here. Closer it's been really now they've head to 130R.
I wonder if Leighton is waiting on this. If he wants to wait a little bit closer to the end of the race to make a move, if he's comfortable following Alceel and pressuring him. Again, I'd rather be the one pressuring the leader than be the one being pressured. That makes any sort of sense.
Well, see, for the most part, Ken's been driving pretty well again. Other than that mistake he had into the S's, I don't think he's really made many other errors.
No, and again, that was just... The problem with that is that was a pretty big mistake. You see all the damage that he's gotten on that car is from that. The slight crinkle in the rear bodywork is from the 8 car of Leighton, and see how good Leighton is through the S's, because that's really where the Ferrari is better than the Z4. But this is not a passing zone, so he's gonna have to figure out another way around him.
Had a little bit of a look there down into Dunlop, and I'm still gonna go really wide again, get so close to the grass.
Big jump into Degner. Oh, that was a slight mistake there by Alceel. You saw him just miss the apex slightly. Gonna bring Leighton up to the rear bumper. He's gonna go driver's right. Gonna go side by side into hairpin up the outside lane. Can he hang on here? The Z4 is gonna have the short way around, and he'll dig out of the corner. And great defensive driving by Alceel, but Leighton's not done.
No, he isn't. Got a pretty good run on the corner, but nowhere to go. Is trying to get to the inside here through the curve, and can't quite get it done. Gonna have maybe a look out left now into Spoon.
Oh, big dive into Spoon now on driver's left. He's gonna overshoot. Alceel's gonna dive back underneath. Can he get the nose in there before the exit of Spoon? He cannot. Thomas Leighton with a power move to the front of the field with 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
Didn't get quite a good exit though. Halcyon back with another run on him. Does he dare make a move as they go side by side, potentially 130R? Here we go.
Here
We're
he comes.
Gonna do it.
I don't think he's going to try to make this pass. Yeah, see right there. He's going to back out, and Layton's going to track out wide. Going to give Ken a great run to driver's left. Executed perfectly there into the braking zone for the Casio triangle. If he can hang on the left here, he'll have a great run out. He's going to back off and try to get the 8 car back on exit again. The Z4 is so much better, accelerating. You see the rear end washing out of the 8 car, trying to get the power down, and Halcyon will have a run on the front straightaway. Not over yet as they come across the line with 11 minutes to go. To the inside, Halcyon finds a hole.
Using the German power to eke his way in front of the Ferrari, and doesn't get past Layton. Layton gonna chuck it up the outside.
Oh man, that was tight through turn number 2. But now Layton is in front in the stronger area of the racetrack for the Ferrari 488 platform, so he's through. And now what was once defense is now on offense, and offense is now on defense.
Really sideways through some of these corners in the S here, more sideways than we've seen them all race. But now I think even with Layton out in front, we've seen how much the BMW had the power that he had out of the straight. So Layton, this battle's far from over if Halcyon can get some good runs.
Oh wow! Oh, there he goes! He's out! Ken Halcyon has lost the car. Through Degner, curve, jumped the curb, he absolutely slammed it, and just like that, Halcyon's chances of winning this race are severely diminished. And that was the second major mistake that Halcyon has made tonight. And it was just too big of a jump, Finney. And these drivers have been so aggressive on this curb all night long, and this is a perfect example of why risk versus reward. This is definitely a high-risk maneuver. Just turns in early, jumps at 4 tires off, and it's all it took to send it around. And Layton did the same thing. Let's watch Layton as he comes through the corner. He also jumped it big time, but jumped it a bit more squarely, and the Z4 just entered the corner a little bit off. That's all it took. And again, the short wheelbase sacrifices some stability.
Yeah, and I think that's where that Ferrari was really able to, you saw them take the corner almost the exact same way, and I think, again, the wider wheelbase, a lot more stable for Layton, surfing over the curbs, and he's going to be able to stay in the lead here with a 9-second gap back to Halcyon in the last 9 minutes of the race.
Yeah, that's pretty much all she wrote if Layton can just run this thing out. I don't think he's going to push as much as he really could have to if Halcyon was right behind him. We know that Ken's got nothing to lose now. Whether he finishes 2nd or whether he finishes 10th, I don't think makes a lick of difference to him. He's going to go run out there and run the fastest laps that he can for the final 9 minutes of this race, but it's a 10-second gap now. Let's jump back to 7th. Scott Merker and Louis Alessi for 7th place. Alessi back in 8th.
Oh, see, great run out of the corner. Again, you can see him really struggling down the straightaways in comparison to Merker here once they get back on the power.
Closest battle on the racetrack right now as they head through Spoon.
And by the time they got to the end of the straightaway there, Alessi was 4 miles an hour slower than Merker.
And Merker just taking off now. Robert Porter in the 136 for all the trouble that he had earlier in the race. He's back up into 5th place. It has been there for quite a while. And Chad Griffith and Francois Brou have been, amazingly, the only drivers today that have not had a major issue. And Brou, again, lasting through all the chaos and carnage around him. He's up in a podium spot like he was at Silverstone.
Yeah, I'm actually looking. Griffith had a bit of an off. He had a pretty slow lap one time. Francois Brou is the only driver to not have a single off lap time. All of his lap times have been within a second or two of each other. So he's been running extremely consistent, and that's paid off in a podium spot at the moment.
Only has to make it around about 5 more times. That would grab another podium for the Frenchman. Thomas Layton, though, 11 seconds, and growing is his lead. It was the mistake, and he actually sort of baited Halcyon into that. He turned in early for Degner. I'm sure it wasn't on purpose, but Halcyon was basically, the problem with Halcyon, what he did wrong there was, I'm not sure if they just happened to make the same mistake or if he was sort of target fixated on the rear of the 8 car and turned in when he turned in. And the 2 cars very different and can't handle the same bump the same way.
I just got a word for Scott Merker in the backfield. He's a bit concerned about fuel. He just got prompted that he has, he said he's got 5 laps of fuel left, and he's just about got 5 laps to go to make it to the line.
I think he should be good because I'm showing about 30 laps estimated. We're on lap number 27.
The leaders are.
Oh, well, he's on the lead lap. He should be all right.
Yeah, no, but he's still got to complete the same amount of laps as everyone. He's still got to make it quite a bit ways longer. He's running still close on fuel.
We'll have to see. 6.5 minutes to go. And for Ken O'Seal, this is going to be probably one that got away. I think he probably would have won this race had he not made the mistakes earlier.
Yeah, he's going to be kicking himself because, again, we were talking about, for Leighton, was the little mistakes that compounded a bit of a spin, but even then did damage the car for O'Seal. He's made, again, by air counts, only 2 mistakes, but man, with those big, again, the major damage he got into the wall in the S's, he goes a little bit wide in Degner, and then speaking of which, through Degner, that major spin that took him out of contention for the lead.
Colin Daner hits pit lane, probably for fuel, although I can imagine that the team probably wants to put some body work on that car. Maybe a splitter and a diffuser and a rear window, perhaps. So he'll hit pit lane and... Oh, couldn't find the pit stall there. Oh, that's going to cost him a lot of time here.
Granted, neither can we. It's always kind of weird on tracks like this.
There we go. Nice quick body work change. Or the 24 Colin Daner was running up in 6th spot. This will drop him down the order some. Only 2 drivers that are still running have made pit stops in this race. Again, you can go all the way if you're clever with your fuel strategy and using the fuel mapping, which I don't think a lot of people do in GT3 cars in the iRacing service. I think usually people leave it on the most expensive map, which is usually the highest power one, and they just leave it there. I think people would much rather drive the car and save their own fuel than change the maps themselves.
Yeah, but definitely those are very powerful too. I mean, from experience literally last night, I won a race with the iRacing. They added the ability to mess around with the fuel maps, the RSB, and the weight jacker on a fixed setup. So I was playing around with that all race, trying to just save enough gas, and it really did help. So again, if you use the tools you're given to, you can really play out in your favor. Especially, I think with Ken O'Seal and other drivers that have been doing it, they've been able to save enough gas.
I mean, that's what O'Seal's doing. It seems like he's way backed off, and maybe this is just because the pace has slowed down for him, but he also could be saving a little bit. I would imagine that these guys are experienced enough now that they would have saved fuel to make it to the end, but there is still the remote possibility that Leighton would have to hit pit lane in an emergency situation, or will run out of fuel. But I would consider those circumstances to be probably unlikely.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he hasn't been already slowing down already with the gap he's been giving to try to save that gas, yeah, it'll be a bit concerning. But you would think with Leighton, especially as experienced as he is, that he would have saved enough. I'm sure, again, and I'm not even going to say it, because last time he said it, he ended up spinning around, so I'm just going to keep quiet for the last 3 laps.
4 minutes to go. Next time by will be 2 laps left. The final race of the shortened DC Region SCCA iRacing League season. We were actually supposed to go to Coda next week, and then Watkins Glen was supposed to be the tail end of the season with Spa somewhere in between. But that will not happen. And we lost the car counts because of the real racing world starting back up, which I'm definitely in favor of. Getting through 130R for the 3rd to last time.
Chicane for him now is just a matter of making it to the end here. 2 laps to go when he comes across the line.
2 laps, about 7 kilometers worth of racing. As Leighton comes on through the first corner, and Ken O'Seal has backed it down across the line that time for him. It was a 2:02.667. Which is about 2.5 seconds off of his best lap of the race and a full second off of Leighton.
Yeah, I think this might be himself just trying, because he doesn't really have a benchmark. I think doesn't want to push it over the limits of the car at the moment. I think he just wants to bring it back home at least in a solid 2nd place.
Back in 3rd place, Francois Brou sits in the 69 car. Not a scratch on that car, not a speck of grass displaced by this big Mercedes AMG earlier. Tonight he started in 5th and has managed to run up inside the podium position just by staying out of trouble. And just like he did at Silverstone a few weeks ago, Francois Brou is set for a podium this afternoon. 4th place Chad Griffith has had a pretty solid night as well.
Absolutely, and again, only one small mistake that we didn't really get a chance to see earlier, but again, compared to most of the other drivers, just kept the car on the track the longest and has resulted in a top 5 run. Again, really solid job for him.
Robert Porter sits in 5th place tonight in the BMW Lifestyle car. That's the purple accented white and black car. And Porter started off his night with a big run up into the front and then slid very quickly back through the first couple of corners after getting a shove from Thomas Layton. And he has worked his way back from last into 5th spot, so this would be a good recovery for the 136 supporter. Alessi sits in 6th. Started 9th. He's jumped up to 6th place, and he has had a couple contacts here and there. You see the damage on the nose of the car, but otherwise has had a relatively uneventful evening. Scott Merker behind, same deal with him. Again, he has been up and down the order all night long, but has been no higher than 7th for any extended period of time. And there's Andrew Chow in the 29 car. He's been to pit lane already once tonight. The Mercedes guzzling quite a bit of fuel. Colin Daner back in 9th place, and Murphy Nichols back here as well. This is an active battle.
Yeah, this is, I think, with Daner on the attack, who's trying to move his way back up after coming down into the pits. And remember, too, that Daner qualified all the way up in 3rd place.
This is not going to be the result that he needed. I think had he just saved fuel and avoided the big off that he had in Degner earlier in the race, he would have been much better off. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Thomas Layton has come on through to take the white flag at Suzuka for the final time in the DC Region SCCA iRacing League for the 2020 summer season. He's put a wheel wrong in several places tonight, but Alciel put a wheel wrong more times, or at least more significantly. Oh, right in front of him. That's Murphy Nichols. Woof. That's why you don't call it until it's over. Let's have a look
absolutely.
Here. Murphy Nichols just gets wide on the curbing and whoop, just a bit of a tank slapper.
I think he's gotten sideways out of the corner, I think at least 4 times tonight, Murphy Nichols, so he's been really struggling for the complex, and I see
Layton just praying that Nichols knew he was coming, but back up to the race leader. 13 seconds is the gap between him and Ken Alciel. They fought tooth and nail for inches, feet, and now it's quite a few hundred yards now that Layton has gapped Alciel over by 13 seconds as Layton comes on through. 130R for the final time, the last high-risk corner here at Suzuka. Track built in 1962. It's held Formula One, MotoGP, and a host of other racing series. For Thomas Layton tonight, though, it marks a significant occasion as he'll round the Casio Triangle, bump over the curbing, and Thomas Layton, for the final time this season, who will be the last of people to come across and collect a checkered flag, but Thomas Layton wins at Suzuka, the WDCR SCCA iRacing League at Suzuka. Meanwhile, for 2nd place, Ken Alciel rolls on through in the number 23 car. Mistakes, only 2, but significant. He will just miss out on collecting a race victory in Japan by about 20 seconds as he comes on through.
Francois Breu got awfully close to him as Alciel slowed down quite a bit on the last lap. I think he really was trying to save fuel at 208 for Alciel. Breu gonna come only just over 3 seconds behind in 3rd, complete your podium. There's Chad Griffith in 7th, coming across in 4th. Robert Porter in the 136 in 5th.
Louis Alessi back a little ways in 6th place, but for the most of the field is pretty much sorted how we thought they would be. But Andrew Chow is not too much farther behind Louis Alessi, so still a bit of a battle for 6th here as we head through Spoon Curve on the white flag lap for 6th and 7th.
Yeah, Chow came over the radio just now to say it's not over yet, so he's trying to catch up to Alessi here in these closing corners.
And Louis Alessi was 2 seconds off pace last time. In the last sector for Alessi, you see the gap falling now under 2 seconds. Alessi is so close. 1.8 is the gap. 1.7. A missed apex for Louis Alessi. Checkered flag for 6th place. Andrew Chow closing. Not going to be enough. Louis Alessi picks up 6th. Andrew Chow, and he had one more lap. He might have gotten it as well, but he comes home in 7th. Scott Merker, 8th place in the 77. And Colin Daner through the Casio Triangle for the final time. And Murphy Nichols has already come through. He is a lap down, so Daner will round out the field and collects the checkered flag. Here's a look at your race results. At the top of the order, Thomas Layton finishing. He takes it home by 20 seconds over Ken Alciel. Ultimately ended up having to save fuel, so I'm not really sure that we would have really seen much different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of curious, especially to talk with Ken, how was the fuel for him if he was going to have to save even when he was battling with Leighton? So it'll be an interesting question to ask him when we bring some guys in the booth to interview. You'll never be forgiven.
It is a really beautiful looking. So anyway, we'll jump back up and we'll grab our third place runner, Francois Brou, who finished in third. And it seemed like no mistakes tonight for the 69 car, Francois Brou. Francois, another podium, just like Silverstone a few weeks ago. The Mercedes, perhaps not the best car choice, but maybe Sloan said he didn't win the race, but certainly on pace and hanging out without any issues. Got you a podium. Walk us through tonight and the challenges of Suzuka.
Yeah, thank you, Cal. But actually, the Mercedes wasn't that bad. It's more kind of a driver. I think compared to a comparable driver, I was on pace, apart from Tom and Ken, but they are different. I think he felt really comfortable. Didn't make any mistake. I ran lap 2 for quite some time. I was keeping Chad behind me. He made couple of mistakes, I think, and then at the end I was just saving, and when he started catching up, I started putting lap 3, and I knew I had more power than the Ferrari against him. So well managed. The beginning was always tense a little bit for me, so I kind of shaky, but as soon as I started rolling, everything went well, and I think the Mercedes did pretty good. It's a pretty good car. I think they rebalanced a tiny bit.
Francois, we want to wish you congratulations on another podium this season, and thanks for talking to us. We look forward to having you back probably in the fall here when things get restarted up for another season, probably in a car a bit slower. I think we're going back to more club-style race cars for the fall season. But thanks again for talking to us. Congratulations, and we'll see you around.
Thank you very much, guys. Good luck to you guys. Ciao.
We're going to move on now to our second place finisher, Ken Ausil, who was engaged in what was an epic battle for the race lead. And for Leighton, he made a bunch of mistakes all over the place, but you, Ken, only a few mistakes, but they were big ones. Walk us through tonight and what happened this evening.
Oh, man. So I don't think Tom or I could have made it on fuel without fuel saving, so we were both fuel saving for quite a while, and then I had an issue. Kept happening like every 5 minutes. I'd get a random frame freeze for half a second, and I just happened to enter the S's and fell off the track. I was like, oh man. But then Tom made a mistake in spoon, and then we were both just battling each other really hard while trying to save fuel. It was really fun.
As we reflect on this season, of course, GT3 cars, very, very fast racing machines. We got to race them on a bunch of different racetracks. What was the best race this season, in your opinion? What was the most competitive out there for you?
Oof, that's a good question. Motorsport was really fun. I honestly don't remember the results of that. And then Sonoma was tons of fun. That was some really crazy battling. So I'd probably say Sonoma, actually. It was just lots of fun.
Ken, thanks so much for talking. Not quite a race win tonight here, but a second place finish, and 22 of the 30 laps were yours as you came across the start-finish line. So led 22 of 30, but came up just short. Thanks for talking to us. We'll see you around.
Yeah, take it easy, guys.
Moving on now to our race winner. It was Tom Leighton. Tonight was definitely a struggle. You led 8 laps of the 30, Tom. There was some contact between you and Ken. You ended up having to give the spot back, but it seemed like a race of attrition. The only driver in the field that did not have a major spinner off was actually the third place car. Just walk us through the battle for the top spot and engaging in this battle with Ken, where it seemed like whoever spun less was going to take the checkered flag.
Yeah, that was intense. I'm sweating here, but yeah, Ken had awesome pace. Obviously, he qualified in pole. So once that happened, I knew it was going to be a battle. And for 60 minutes, I mean, we just couldn't let up. So it was kind of a mix of that plus conserving fuel, because I mean, I finished with about 1 lap of spare fuel, but yeah, I was saving pretty aggressively. So like I could not pass him on the draft or on the straights. I was just if I was a second back, that's where I would be the whole way down the straight. So yeah, once we would get close, I mean, Ken was trying to hold me up. I know I spun him accidentally, but I mean, it's racing. So I gave it back. And I know like he made a few mistakes. I made the same mistake I did last week where this car you touch the outside curb and it just spins itself like nothing you can do. So like I was on the same lap that Ken gave me the lead going off in the S's. So yeah, I mean, just pushing hard the whole time and mistakes were made, but yeah. And then I feel like I was pretty consistent, so it worked out.
Tom, I want to wish you congratulations. Suzuka is definitely a tricky, challenging racetrack, but you survived and outlasted 8 laps of the 30 led, but the checkered flag lap, the most important one. Tom, congratulations on the win, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, guys.
That's going to round up the interviews for tonight, Finney, and reflecting back on what was a very entertaining race. Your thoughts on this as we head into a pretty light week of streams coming up. Tomorrow, I think we've got some, at least I've got some work to do for the Formula I stuff. We basically they've got teams set up with 2 drivers each for the Formula One thing, and I'm going to try to basically make our ticker very Formula One inspired. I think we're going to do the 3-letter abbreviations. It's going to look really cool.
Ooh, yeah.
I think I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, this championship was honestly really well set up. They got full-on teams in both F1, F3. F3 is an actual feeder series for them, and then they have a knockout qualifying setup. I'm really looking forward to this, especially being, again, the first time we've done Formula One cars on Sim TV. It's looking to be a really good group of drivers to work with, but a lot of drivers as well.
Looking forward to that. I'm not sure that we're streaming anything tomorrow, but just keep an eye out for more information on Formula I, because it's probably the most exciting new thing to come to Sim TV in the last couple months, maybe other than the ACC GT Rivals Championship. So keep your eye out for that as we kind of engage in. We have to figure out how to make knockout qualifying work. I have to figure out how to write that in a script, so that's going to require a lot of testing. But keep your eye out for that. Otherwise, I think we're done here until, I think, Wednesday, I want to say. So we'll see you next week for Spec MX5 Sim Racing Challenge on the Winding Road Magazine YouTube channel. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Finney and DeCuna. We'll see you next time.